All right, so some final capstone guidelines so you all can get started with your capstone projects. Things to remember. I guess let me put this under week 2. Under week 2, you must pitch your project by the 10th, by Wednesday, Feb 10th. So don't forget that date. Actually, a couple of you have already pitched your projects to me, and that is fine. You don't have to worry about that. Doesn't have to be in a meeting. You can Slack me about it if you'd like, but of course, meeting is preferred so we can talk through some of your ideas. Things to expect this week. Right now, we're doing a Capstone Kickoff. Tomorrow, we'll be doing an API web scraping review. So I'll go over a different API from the one that we did back in phase 1. I'll web scrape something that's slightly different, and I'll go over some of the things to remember and some like common procedures when using API and web scraping. If you already have an API that you're looking at, couple things to look out for, because I'm guessing a lot of you are going to start looking at different data sources. Not every API is free. Unfortunately, even like I can't help you get around that. So make sure that, I mean, preferably you use a free API. If you don't mind paying for it, I don't mind if you pay for it, but usually APIs are pretty expensive because they're usually like for use by like bigger companies creating apps. In terms of web scraping, there are certain websites that are very, very difficult to web scrape. I would say if you have time today or tomorrow, try web scraping something if you're thinking of web scraping, just so you know if that's something that's possible. I will be going over like some of the basics to remember, how to get started, creating functions for doing APIs and web scraping, and where you should store your credentials if we don't remember that. So that's coming up tomorrow at our usual study group time. I think each of these should take less than an hour, so we always have time for questions built in. On Thursday, I'll be walking through building SQL databases. I'll be talking through a couple ways you can do that. One is actually using the pandas to SQL method. That's the first one I'll go through on Thursday. If you want to look it up, it's there. It's a very, very simple way to just like take your pandas data frame and turn it into a database. Some pros and cons that I'll go through tomorrow. And I'll go through a couple other methods too, one of which is a way that you can host your database on AWS. And I think that might be of interest to some of you, just so you can put AWS on your like portfolio. And then finally on Friday, I'll be talking about Jupyter Dash. Now, Jupyter Dash, I think I'd mentioned it super briefly last week, but Jupyter Dash is a library that allows you to build dashboards within your Jupyter notebook. And what's really neat about Jupyter Dash is you can actually take the dashboard from within your Jupyter notebook and very easily port it into a front end. And the code is, I think, almost identical. So if you like are testing your dashboard out on Jupyter Dash, it makes it very, very easy to like in the future publish on a website or something potentially. So that's what's coming up this week. If you see next week, it's going to be topic deep dive / reviews. This is going to be one, if anyone has any like particular topics that you really want a refresher on or something that you are particularly interested in, feel free to let me know. I'll put like a post up that y'all can add your suggestions or requests to, or even feel free to throw that in here if you'd like. Or I'll do that based on what your projects are. So if I see like a lot of you are doing NLP projects, for example, I'll do like a session on NLP. If I see a lot of rec systems, I'll do that. So it will be based off, it might also be based off what your projects are looking like. And then next week, there'll be MVP. I'll talk about preparing MVP presentations tomorrow. Don't worry about that for now. Oh, I just had a thought in my head that I wanted to let you all know. Yeah, any questions at this point? While I try and remember what I was going to say. All right, well, I can't remember right now. So if I remember it, I'll let you all know. So this week, and it's very, very normal for students to take about a week plus to figure out what their project will be. So again, I have these project planners that you can choose to use if you'd like to. I know it really helps some students. For some students, if you already have a good idea of what your project's going to be, you might not need to use it. But if you do decide to fill that up, feel free to send it over to me. It is a very, very clear way for me to see what you want your product to look like. And just a reminder, your project just has to be the equivalent of an end of phase project with just something added. And here I've dropped the list of public APIs. If y'all remember last week, I shared that link with all like the public available data sets. This is one of APIs, and there are a lot of different topics that you can get information on. So feel free to explore that. I think APIs is one of the easier, more consistent ways to get data versus web scraping, but web scraping, pretty much anything that you can find on the internet you can get. So it's really up to you. So I think I talked about this already. Some things to remember when you're pitching your project to me. When you're pitching your product to me, make sure you have your data, or at least an idea of what you want your data to be. What is it? First of all, like I just want to know what it is you're interested in doing, and also how you're planning on getting the data. Is it going to be an API? Is it going to be web scraping? Is it going to be a combination of like maybe a Kaggle data set with something else? Talk about the models you're intending to use. And by models you're intending to use, I don't really mean like specifically like random forests. Just really just say like, I'm going to build a regression model, a classification model, maybe like a rec systems model, just the kind of models you're intending to use. If you're thinking of doing multiple, that works as well. Just let me know. Just so I have an idea of, you know, what you plan on incorporating into your project. Next, you definitely want to think of your business case. I went on a whole like spew of how important a business case is before. So make sure you have some sort of business case tied to your project. Like, why are you doing your project? You got to make it worthwhile. And then finally, what your MVP is going to be versus your ideal final product. If you, for example, only had a week or two to do your project, what is going to be a product that you're going to be able to show at the end of just 1 to 2 weeks versus 4 weeks? Again, an MVP is actually really, really important because one, it becomes something that you can build the rest of your project off of, just in case, you know, if you're like working on a bunch of different things at the same time, like let's say your project has like 3 different components. If you're working on all 3 components at the same time, if one of them doesn't work, it's usually harder to get yourself reorganized. So usually I tell people to like scope down your project to one product first, a minimum viable product. The keyword is viable. And then when you're done with that, you can build on the rest of it. Of course, this is a little bit of a gray area depending on the product. So feel free to talk to me about it. But yeah, these are the main things that I just want to hear from you all as you're pitching your project this week and next week. I'm going to be just taking down what your projects are. And yeah, just remember to do that before next Wednesday. Any questions at this point, or is anyone like unclear of what they're working on this week? Whether it is deciding on a project or I don't know, seeing if your data set that you're interested in is viable or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question is, so we need to API or web scraping my data set, right?
Yes, that's right. You don't have to have all of your data like web scraped by Wednesday. Just by Wednesday, you should have checked that you can web scrape or get your data from an API. Those are not the only 2 ways you can get data. I mean, I think those are the more straightforward ways to get your data, but also if you use like a Kaggle data set, you cannot just use a Kaggle data set, you have to add something to it. So yeah, that's like the one requirement, that your data set cannot just be like a off the shelf already made data set.
Do you have any recommendation for API for the
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of APIs available. I mean, on this link, there are a lot of them. I haven't used like even a decent percentage of all of these APIs. I will say that really user-friendly APIs in my experience are New York Times if you want like news articles for like NLP. Spotify has a really robust API. Spotify's API also includes like stuff that you can sort of like create a product. Like I know they have functionality for you to automatically like generate playlists in your Spotify account, for example. What are some other APIs? Oh, if anyone's into board games, board game, there's this website called Board Game Geek. I know I actually like use, did I scrape it or I don't remember if I scraped it or I think I used their API / use Beautiful Soup because anyways, they have a pretty user-friendly API to get like a bunch of information about board games if you're interested in that. Yeah, that sounds kind of random. I know there's like an anime one that I've seen a couple of projects done on. I've seen like one project where a student will like take a photo of themselves and then just compare it and see what anime character you look most like. That's kind of funny. Um, but yeah, those are I haven't used too many just because I'm mostly helping people with projects. But yeah, a bunch of APIs here. I think there's like a machine learning tab. Okay, I guess this is not for machine learning, but yeah, there's a bunch here. Oh, I think another good one, if anyone's interested in beer, I think there's like a good beer API to get like different information about different beers. There's a cigars one. I know I had a student that like web scraped one of the, I don't know what the name of it, but there's like a website that has all like cigar information. Yeah, there's a bunch.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, if you want to narrow it down to an industry and like Slack me, any of you, if you want to narrow it down to an industry and you want to Slack me about it and see if I have any like past projects done on that industry, let me know. I can definitely add more projects to that list of projects that's on the guidelines page. Any other questions or thoughts?
Yes, I have a question about when we are choosing how our model is working, for example, a classification or a regression. I mm, I kind of don't remember how the regression works with, for example, NLP, how we are
Yeah.
predicting things with regression.
Yeah, I mean, with classification or regression, the data looks the same. The only difference is your target variable. So as an example of an NLP regression project, one project that is pretty straightforward is using a tweet to predict how much a stock will move. So I know someone did that with like Tesla stock. They did like an NLP analysis on like what Elon Musk has tweeted in one day and like the amount of movement in a stock. So it would range in like, whether it goes up however much or yeah, it's just a range of numbers. So your target becomes continuous. So yeah, you can feed all of that information. Your Y would be, like a continuous variable of like stock changes within a day. And then yeah, you can feed that into a regression model. It can be linear regression. Don't forget that we had mentioned like the regression counterparts of a lot of our phase 3 models that we never use. Like for example, we have the random forest regressor, XGBoost has a regressor as well. Decision tree has a regressor too. So yeah, doing a regression project doesn't just mean linear regression. You have all of those other models too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Well, awesome. I feel like I have been talking through like capstones over the last week anyways. So I feel like there's nothing else that I have to tell you all other than pitch your projects to me in the next week. If you have anything that you're unsure of, please just let me know via Slack so I can help like clear up any things that you're unsure of. I will say during the capstone is where a lot of people sort of, I guess not lose drive, but it's hard to stay focused because you're just working on a single project for 4 weeks. So over the coming days, I'll be putting up like other like midweek milestones that you all should be at. And of course, in our one-on-ones, we can talk about more specific goals for your project after you've pitched them to me. So yeah, awesome. Any final thoughts before we close out?
And you said that by Wednesday we should do that. By Wednesday, I mean tomorrow?
Oh, by next Wednesday, February 10th.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, thank
No
you.
worries, no worries. Yeah, so you have about a week to come up with a project. If you're really having difficulty, I really recommend just looking at one of these example projects and picking one that like resonates with you the most. So yeah, the different ways you can start narrowing down, use these questions to help yourself. These questions like specific models, industries, or data sets to help you narrow down your search. And if you've like narrowed it down somewhere and you can't figure out what else to do, let me know as well. I feel like if you're just like sitting there idly, just like staring at different data sets and nothing's happening, let me know. Let me know. Cool. Any final thoughts? All right then. Well, good luck thinking about your projects. Really great job on the presentations today, as well as yesterday. I think all of you have already scheduled your project reviews, but do so if you haven't yet. And yeah, great job with the presentations. We're finally closing the book on phase 4. And yeah, as usual, let me know if there's anything else on your minds. All right then, have a good rest of your day, everybody. I'll see you all at one-on-ones or tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.